My sisters and brothers, as we said at the beginning of the Mass today, by happy coincidence, the Feast of All Souls Day falls on a Sunday this year. And so we have the opportunity, all of us, to pray for those who have died. Yesterday, we remembered all the saints in heaven, and they are praying for us. Today, we remember all of those who have died and who need our prayers. And if you look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the Catechism of the Catholic Church describes purgatory as the place where those who have died but are in friendship with God will go to be purified. If we die in friendship with God, we'll go to be purified. We heard the first reading today, that beautiful reading from the book of Maccabees. You know, Judas Maccabeus and his brothers gathered an army around them to fight to protect the Jewish law. And they were going to protect that law and maintain that law at all costs. And at a certain point, they were going into battle, and they were always winning the battles they were going into. And God says to Judas, you're going to go into battle with your army. Tell them not to take any booty from anybody they kill. Make sure that if anybody dies and they have gold or silver or anything worthwhile on them, that the men don't touch it. Leave it there. And so Judas tells the men this here. And they go out into battle. And after they win the battle, Judas sees that some of the men have died. They've been killed in the battle. And Judas doesn't understand, because God always protected the men from death. And so he goes to all the dead bodies, and he finds on all the dead bodies that they had taken something from somebody they killed. They had taken some booty from someone they killed. And Judas says, we heard in that beautiful reading, these were godly men. They were friends of God, but they were not perfect. And so he takes all the silver and gold that they collected, and he sends it to Jerusalem, to the temple, so that the priests in the temple can pray for the souls of these godly men who died but were not perfect. That's the story of Judas. And this is what we recall today. You know, my brothers and sisters, every single one of us in here, no matter how young or how old, every single one of us in here is going to die. That's the reality. We're going to die. I'm going to die. You're going to die. The question is, when I die, will I be in friendship with God? That's the question. When I die, will I be in friendship with God? Will God, I'm going to be imperfect. Who of us here, when we die, if you die today, if I die today, who of us here is ready to see God face to face, to see God in the face? None of us. Not one of us. We're all imperfect. We all have sins. We're friends of God, or we hope to be friends of God, or we wouldn't be here, but we all have sins. And so we're friends with God, but we're not perfect. We're not ready to see God face to face. And so we go to purgatory, to a place of purification, to burn out anything. Now, purgatory isn't fire, although we have visions of all that. But to burn out anything inside of me that's not worthy of God, so that I can see God in the face. And so the first question today then is very simply that. Am I living in friendship with God? If I'm not, then I better go to confession and get it taken care of. because I should be living in friendship with God. That's the first thing. And the second thing we heard in that reading from the Romans, and what does St. Paul remind us in the reading of the Romans? St. Paul reminds us in the reading of the Romans that all of us through baptism has been buried with Christ and has risen again to new life. We've all been baptized. What happens in baptism? We go into the water and we come out baptized with the life of God within us. You and I have eternal life within us. We have God within us. It's amazing. And St. Paul says, we died with Christ through the water, now we rose with him. Now we have to live like Christ. If you want eternal life, you have to live like Christ. If you're going to be in friendship with God, then you better make sure that you're living the way you should be living. How do I live my Christian Catholic life? Do I live it every single day, trying to imitate Jesus, trying to live like Jesus, trying to be more like Jesus? Or do I just kind of live my life? Yeah, I come to Mass on Sundays, and that's about it, Lord. Am I really changing my heart every day to try to live more and more like Jesus? If I'm not, then I'm not living that eternal life that was given to me on the day of my baptism. And if I'm not living that eternal life that was given to me on the day of my baptism, well, I'm not going there, and I'm not coming here, I'm going there. Hell is a real place. Hell is a very real place. I hope some of you today, after Mass or sometime today, get a chance to see St. Carlo Acutis' display exhibit on heaven, hell, and purgatory. Read it and you'll find out hell is a real place. It exists. It exists. So it is my conduct, the conduct of someone who is a disciple of Christ. Do I live like Jesus? Do I try to follow Jesus? Or do I just live my life without a thought of Jesus? Without a thought that I have eternal life inside of me that I have to protect and nurture and care for. And then we come to the gospel. And what does the gospel tell us? Martha is there. She goes out to meet Jesus. She's sad because her brother died. She goes out to meet Jesus. And what does she tell Jesus? If you were here, my brother would not have died. And Jesus says to her, I am the resurrection and the life. And if you believe that, then your brother lives. That's important. Because sometimes we think when someone dies, what's important is that Jesus is present when they die. If Jesus is not present and they're not living in friendship with God, their life isn't being a disciple of Jesus, and so they die. But Jesus says, I'm present. And if I'm present, you live. If you believe in me, you will have eternal life. You know, for so many of my sisters and brothers in this world who don't believe, what is life all about? I'm born, I live, I die, I rot. Wow. Who cares about that? And St. Paul tells us that. If you don't believe in the resurrection, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, if you don't believe in eternal life, eat, drink, and be merry and go do whatever you want, because all of this is a waste of time. But if you believe, then what is our life like? I'm born, I live, I die, I live. And that's our faith. That's our faith. We have an eternal life, and we live forever. And once I think about that I'm going to live forever, then I have to think about, how am I going to live forever? With God forever? Or with the devil forever? That's my choice. That's my choice. How am I going to live forever? All of these things help us to understand our friendship with God. You know that Don Bosco was a great dreamer. Lots of dreams. Don Bosco was a great dreamer in the church. And he had a dream of purgatory. I'm not going to go through the whole dream because it's a long dream. And it's a dream. So he says he sees himself flying in the air. He's telling the boys this dream. He sees himself flying in the air. And all of a sudden he's in this big mansion. And there's this bishop who was there in purgatory. And the bishop is there, and 1 minute the bishop is sitting on a beautiful chair, royal chair, and a few minutes after, he goes and sees the bishop, and the bishop is on a bed, suffering and dying. It's a long dream. But what struck me so much in the dream is what the bishop keeps telling Don Bosco. And the bishop keeps telling Don Bosco, please, Don Bosco, pray for me. Please, Don Bosco, pray for me. Tell the boys to pray for me. I will pray for them. I will pray for you. But please, please pray for me. Aha! The souls in purgatory can help us, but they need our prayers. And that's what we're doing today. That's why we'll put those envelopes with all their names on the altar in a few minutes. That's why we light a candle. That's why we offer a mass. Why? Because they need our prayers. And not just once, but continually. We should be praying for the souls in purgatory. So the bishop kept telling Don Bosco, please, Don Bosco, pray for me. Tell the boys to pray for me. I'll pray for them. The souls in purgatory can help us out. But they need us to get to heaven. They need us to get to heaven. So we have to pray for them. The second thing that happened in the dream is Don Bosco asked the bishop, how long are you been here? How long have you been here? And the bishop hands Don Bosco a letter. And Don Bosco is looking at the letter, and he's looking at it, and he says to the bishop, I don't understand anything that's written here. And the bishop says to him, turn it upside down. And so he turns it upside down, and Don Bosco can begin to read some things. And Don Bosco says, I don't understand. How come I have to read the letter upside down? And the bishop says to him, because God does not judge the way we judge. We read this way. God reads this way. We only see what's outside. God knows the whole person. So when somebody dies, we can't judge. Only God can judge, and God does not judge the way we judge. And that's important to remember. So when I die, how will God judge me who reads me upside down and inside out? And the last thing that was very interesting in the dream for me is the bishop tells, Don Bosco says to the bishop, what should I tell the boys? And the bishop says to him, tell the boys to be careful of the fog. Be careful of the fog. We all know what fog is. We've all tried to drive in fog at some point or another. You can't see sometimes 2 feet ahead of you. And what was the bishop telling Don Bosco? You're going someplace. Where are you going? I'm going to God because God made me for him. But as I'm going to God, I can get lost in fog. And what's the fog, the bishop says? Attachment to all the kinds of material things. Attachment to all the little sins that we commit. The bishop says to him, live the virtues, be pure, be kind, be gentle, be generous, serve. But what happens in our life, my sisters and brothers, at least if I'm honest with myself and you're honest with yourself, so often we get lost in the fog and we put all our attention on all of these different things that make us lose our direction. Where are we going? I'm going to God. He has prepared a place for me. And so I got to ask myself then this morning also, am I lost in a fog? And if I'm in a fog, then I better get rid of all that keeps me in the fog and get back straight on the direction. My sisters and brothers, we're doing a good and holy thing today. We're praying for those who have died. Those that have died in friendship with God, that they may see him in the face. But at the same time, they challenge us. Because I'm going to die, and you're going to die. Will I die in friendship with God so that I can see him in the face? God bless you.